Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 121 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I enjoyed doing our TCAT episode.
It was a good one.
We just recorded it on Tyler Hadley.
Yeah.
This is one of those episodes where a 17-year-old murders their mom and dad.
That's not good.
It's not good. And then decides to have like a blowout party in the house after he has murdered them.
Yeah.
And they're still in the house.
Strange, man.
It is a strange but good episode. So definitely check that out on TCAT.
And you know, somebody might be listening to this that was at that party that night.
You never know. Wouldn't that be something?
They're like, I was at that party that they're talking about.
And of course, there would have been no way for them to know what was going on. So can't hold it against them.
No.
We have some new Patreon supporters. So let's give some shout outs there. We had Adrian Simpson.
Yo, Adrian.
Suzanne Ullin.
Ullin? Don't fool him.
Julie.
Hey, Julie.
Carrie Miles.
What's up, Carrie?
Amy Murdoch.
Her dad's from the A-Team.
Maybe.
Okay.
Ashley C.
Hey, Ashley.
J-Ro.
Hey, what up, J-Ro?
Megan Noonan.
Hey, Megan.
Rebecca Nye.
From like the science guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Nye's daughter. Maybe.
Cool.
Paula Stanbridge.
What's up, Paula?
Samantha.
Hey, Samantha.
Elia Montroy.
Montroy.
Kristen Mansfield.
Hey, Kristen.
Larry Wilson.
What's up, Larry?
Gia Pico jumped out at the highest level.
I like that. Gia Pico.
Frody Hedvald.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Hey, Brody.
Haley Steele.
What's going on, Haley?
Antoinette Taylor.
Hey, Antoinette.
Crystal Rolfe.
What's up, Rolf?
Sarah Red.
Hey, Sarah.
Elizabeth Hurley.
Ooh, famous.
A star power.
That is star power.
Yana Knudsen.
What does it make me want to yawn?
Lakeisha Savage.
Hey, Lakeisha.
Maquias Velasco.
Ooh, that just sounds fun to say. Maquias.
I know. Vicky Armstrong.
Hey, Vicky.
And Kristen Bellers.
Hey, Kristen Bellas.
Then, Gibbs, if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Katie Morgan.
Hey, Katie.
Katie's been a long time listener and supporter of the show. We appreciate that. We appreciate all the new Patreon support, all the continued Patreon support. You know, last week we put out a Patreon only episode. Got some really good feedback on kind of redoing the Richard Kuklinski episode that you were not in.
It was a good one.
I enjoyed doing it. I had fun. We had some great PayPal support as well. Breda Hale.
Hey, Breda.
Jessica Metz.
What's up, Jessica?
Daniel Javier.
Javier.
Kate Massey.
What's going on, Kate?
And Dorothy Ballerini.
Ballerina. Famous.
All right, Gibbs. Are you ready to get into this episode of Unsolved?
I'm ready to do it.
We are going to New Zealand, where we have a lot of listeners.
Good day, mate.
And I don't know if that's what they say at all.
Good day, mate.
I really don't know what they say. I know they're called Kiwis.
Yeah.
Because we've heard that. But I don't know if they talk like Australians.
Well, they're just
or say mate
over
or
to the left or right, depending on how you're looking at the globe.
You don't know where they're at.
They're down below.
But we're covering one of the most high profile, the most talked about unsolved cases in New Zealand history. And it's the case of Kirsty Bentley, who took her dog for an afternoon walk on December 31st, 1998, and then disappeared. So let's dive right in, right? Kirsty Marianne Bentley was born on January 18th, 1983 in Christchurch, New Zealand. She was the second child born to Sydney and Jill Bentley. Kirsty had an older brother by the name of John. And when you see people or hear people talk about Kirsty, it was all good, right? Normal girl, normal teenager. She was straightforward. She was caring. She liked people.
Yeah, she was very outgoing when she was around friends and family. Maybe she was a little reserved when she wasn't, but that's kind of, you see that in some, a lot of kids actually. You know, they're really comfortable around their family, but when you get around strangers, they're hold back a little bit.
Well, there's a part of me, Gibbs, that says that's actually a good way to go through life. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, we teach kids don't talk to strangers.
Right.
You
We
know,
do.
You and I talk about keeping your head on a swivel. Yeah, you can let your hair down a little bit around your friends and family. That's where you should feel safe.
Right.
Unfortunately, we've been doing some episodes lately that don't make us feel that way.
Yeah.
But it's really when you start to get around strangers, right? People that you don't know, that your guard should be up.
Danger, stranger.
Or stranger danger.
That too.
Actually, both.
Kind of works either way.
You should go both ways.
Yes. You know, but Kirsty was a really creative person. She really was. And it was also said she was very expressive. And I think that probably leads to the fact that she took some art class, some drama class. I know you took some drama in high school.
Just so I could wear tights. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I've never been good at art, but I was pretty kick-ass at drama. I got to admit.
You were like that. Didn't you guys do that 90120 play? Didn't you think you were that Dylan guy? Is that who you thought you were?
90210.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I never watched it, but I guarantee you never missed an episode. And everybody listening knows you never missed an episode. You just really kind of stepped in it there.
Right. Why'd you hurt me like this?
Because you tried to get me, and it backfired on you because of the fact you even said 90210.
I think maybe I watched it with my girlfriend.
Oh, that's a good out.
That's probably what it was.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's a good out. But you're right. I mean, she was kind of maybe artsy is a word for it.
Yeah.
Expressive. You mentioned that. She wrote poetry, was into drama and just really kind of all around a creative person.
Do you remember my poetry phase I went through?
Was that when you were doing Def Poetry Jam?
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a battle rap with poetry.
It was
Mhm.
pretty decent, right?
It was not bad.
Yeah.
Kirsty attended Ashburton School where she met her best friends and they formed a very tight group. This was a part that I think you and I had some issues with, Gibbs. A lot of the reporting called it college, but it also seemed as though they used high school and college somewhat interchangeably.
A little different than here in the States.
Right. Now we know Kirsty went missing when she was 15 years old.
Right.
And so I don't believe she's in college, university, the way that we would think of it here in the United States.
It's rare at that age, unless you're like me
You'd
or
be
Doogie.
you and Doogie,
Right.
Unless she was really that smart. I think college in this sense of the word is high school years 9 through 12 or 9 through 13,
Yeah.
something like that.
I agree with you.
Kirsty also started to date a local boy around that time. So when you look at her life, things are going very well for her.
Yeah, she's doing good in school. She's got her art stuff going on. And you just said she met a new guy.
She's got a new boyfriend. She has a great group of friends. This is not a person that, where we would talk about in a lot of cases who's struggling, right? She's not struggling to fit in. She's not struggling to be liked. She has a lot going on for her.
Yeah.
On December 31st, 1998, Kirsty went to the college library, high school library, whatever we may use the words interchangeably as well, to meet up with a friend. They were going to study. This was around 10:30 a.m. They ended up going shopping for a little bit. They bought some teddy bears. They stopped at the local McDonald's around 12:30 for lunch.
That's what you do, go to McDonald's.
What do you think they have at McDonald's in New Zealand?
Probably like some kangaroo burger, man.
Do you think they have a quarter pounder with cheese? Or do you think they have an Royale with cheese?
Probably a Royale.
Because of the metric system.
Royale.
Since I just watched Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction? Yeah. Burger King's like, no, that's our thing, man.
Yeah. He's like, I never went to Burger King. So he didn't know what they had there at Burger King. So ate lunch at McDonald's. Kirsty got a ride home from her friend's sister around 2:30 p.m. When Kirsty walked into her house, her brother John told her that her boyfriend, Graham, called looking for her. He had left a message for her and he wanted her to call him back.
And she did. She called him back at 2:38 p.m. They were able to verify that through her, the phone records. But when she called him back, he wasn't home. He was already out doing something else. So got a little phone tag going on.
but she was able to leave a message back to him. So again, that would have been, you said phone records. So between the phone records and her actually leaving the message, two pretty good points of evidence.
Yeah.
As it relates to timeline.
Sure.
After a little while, Kirsty decided to take her black lab, Abby, for a walk. And, she loved Abby. This was very evident from all the research. I happen to have a chocolate lab.
You do.
That, my girls, they just adore. He's the laziest dog in the whole world, but they love him to death.
They say the dogs take after their owner.
Well,
so
that's why he's so lazy.
No.
Because my wife. No,
Oh,
just kidding.
This is the one that she'll hear.
She'll listen to this one and be like, what? But so Kirsty loved Abby, no doubt about that. Took her for walks all the time. Now, when they asked her brother later, he really couldn't pinpoint the time that Kirsty left to take Abby for this walk, but a neighbor could. The neighbor was very sure that they had seen Kirsty and Abby walk by on South Street around 3:05 p.m.
I witnessed a lot of things throughout the day. I'm telling you, if you came back and asked me the next day, I would not be able to say, oh yeah, I saw Mike walk by at 2:48. I just wouldn't be able to do that. I don't know how these people are able to tell police the exact time things happen.
I think normally I would agree, but there's one thing that's sticking out into my head. So for years, my daughter has gotten home at the same time from school. And a lot of times I'll either drive down the street and get her. We don't live that far from the school. Or I'll just stand outside and watch her walk. Well, if somebody walked by around during that point in time and you asked me a day or two later, I would remember because it would be associated with the time that my daughter gets off of school.
I gotcha.
But outside of something like that, which is very specific, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Just middle of the day, unless Wapner was on or something like that, I don't know how you're pinpointing it.
Yeah, I don't either. But that makes sense. If you can tie something that was relevant to you.
Or something else. You'd have to tie it to something else. At 4:30 p.m., Kirsty's boyfriend called back. John answered, told him that she had not returned from taking Abby for a walk. So, like you said, they're really playing phone tag now.
Right.
Going back and forth. Around 5:15 p.m., Kirsty's mom, Jill, returned home from work. She asked where Kirsty and Abby were. John told her that they were out for a walk. And I think Jill was a little worried. I don't know how much, I don't know what her level of worry was, but it had been a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I think her worry was a little high. I think I remember reading in one article, her exact saying was, where the fuck is Kirsty and Abby? And so you can tell it's,
agitated. You mean when she walks into the door?
Yeah.
And finds out that they're not there?
Right.
So they've been gone on this walk for over 2 hours. Joe called Kirsty's boyfriend, wanted to see if he had seen her. He said no. He confirmed he had not seen her. Very quickly, I think Jill took to the streets and she followed the typical path that Kirsty would have used to walk Abby through their neighborhood to the town's riverfront area. I think she would say later that she was nervous and started to get this extremely uneasy feeling while she was doing this. And again, I've said this more than once. I truly believe that this whole mother's intuition thing is absolutely real. There's too many stories. I've heard too many of them of mothers all of a sudden getting this feeling. Sometimes, you hear it 1,000 miles away or whatever. Right. But I think Jill had this type of feeling that something wasn't right. Something's off. And she decided to make her way back home So she turned around and went back home. We mentioned it. She's agitated. She's upset.
Yeah.
She thinks something's wrong. John's home. She's talking to John. They both make the decision that they are going to sit at the house as calmly as they can and wait till 6 p.m.
You know how hard that would be?
Very, very tough.
Yeah.
So they said if Kirsty was not home by 6, then they would go out and look for her. And it got to be around 5:55 p.m. John couldn't take it. He couldn't make it the extra 5 minutes. He decided to take off to go look for his sister. And again, did so by following this kind of normal path on which the dog Abby was walked every day. Just after 6 p.m., Kirsty's dad, Sidney, got home from work. And, obviously they had to get him up to speed, let him know what was going on. He didn't mess around. He called the police right away.
He did. He said, let's get the police involved now.
But again, Gibbs, it is what, 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
Since anybody has seen Kirsty.
I mean, the good news is that the police respond very quickly, and they're going to ramp up the search efforts that night.
Yeah, I think they didn't mess around either. So you have the police searching. The family is out searching. Friends of the family, friends of Kirsty. Everyone is out searching and canvassing this area, looking for both Kirsty and Abby. But unfortunately, they searched through the night and they didn't find either one of them. The next morning, the police organized a large search and rescue operation, and teams headed out about 8 a.m. to begin searching. And it was just after 10 a.m. that they got a break. And this was when a search team found Abby, the family dog. Abby had been tied up to a tree in a little wooded patch near the Ashburton River right off Chalmers Avenue. Now, this same area had been searched the night before, but again, it was very dark. And where Abby was found was just this little patch of extremely heavy foliage. So it would have been almost like camouflage.
Sure. Yeah, especially the color of the dog.
It's a black dog at night, probably laying underneath, some of this foliage. Would have been very hard to find if the dog was not barking or doing anything like that.
Now, at first, when they retrieved the dog, the leash around its neck, the family thought, that's not ours. Whose leash is that? But after they gave it some thought and realized it actually was one that they had bought for Abby, they just didn't remember it right away because typically it was Kirsty that took the dog for a walk.
Yeah, and if you're not seeing it for, some time, you might not remember it. So the search party discovered a few other things. They found a pair of female underwear. They also found a pair of boxer shorts close to where Abby was found. And both of these would eventually be identified as Kirsty's. And her mom had bought these items for her as Christmas presents. So really, she had just received these about a week before.
Yeah. And that's why her mom could easily identify them. She remembered picking them out for her.
Right. They had just probably opened presents, like I said, a week before. Search efforts for Kirsty continued for the next 16 days. There were so many volunteers, Gibbs, that came out. They even got the New Zealand Army involved. They searched all of the Ashburton city area, including the township that encompassed Ashburton. It was said that the Army focused on areas in Canterbury. On January 17th, this was the day before Kirsty's 16th birthday. In the area of Camp Gully, two men came across a very decomposed human body lying in some overgrown weeds and pines. This site was about 25 miles or 40 kilometers from where the dog Abby was found. The body was found in a fetal-like position and was nude from the waist down. This body would eventually be identified as Kirsty Bentley. She was lying in a fairly steep embankment, and it appeared as though someone had placed branches and leaves on top of her. The area was fairly close to State Highway 72, which is known as the Inland Scenic Route. This is an area that was known to be used by local cannabis growers.
Very heavily used by growers, for sure. Every article I read talked about the amount of cannabis that was grown in this section of New Zealand.
Is weed legal in New Zealand?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't think it is. Back then, I don't think it was. I don't know if it is today.
That's true. That's true. Either way, we got a lot of pot growers in and around this area. I mean, I think everybody knew this area was used to grow pot. There's people that would try to hike up there. They would take some bud without getting caught. It was probably like a game to some.
Yeah. Hey, man, want to get high? We got to go hike and get our supply, but we can't get caught.
Well, I'm assuming if these were illegal cannabis growers, they didn't look too kindly on people stealing their stuff.
No, makes me think of that movie with Leo DiCaprio, Leo DiCaprio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that one movie. Leo DiCaprio has been in 7,200 movies.
Yeah, well, the one where they go to that island and they're walking in the field of the marijuana plants, and the guys try to shoot them, and they realize that they don't want to be on this island anymore. No. Doesn't ring a bell?
Mm-mm. Not giving me a lot to work with.
It's called The Beach.
I think there is a movie that he's in called The Beach. I've never seen
The
it.
Island.
So it could be either one of those. Yeah.
Anyway.
So he has made so many great movies. You pick one nobody's ever heard of. You can't remember.
No.
And is obviously not on the list of all-time great movies.
But it was a scary moment because the pot growers, right, weren't happy to see them in their fields of product.
Yeah. No, I don't think any type of drug people that have fields of drugs are happy to see people in their fields of drugs.
Yeah.
That's kind of a known thing.
Now I'm thinking about it. Maybe it was opium, but pot, opium.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't Leo. It was somebody completely different.
Yeah.
It wasn't an island, too, by the way.
It was suburban.
It was somebody's backyard, and it was not pot.
Yeah.
It was
rose bushes. I don't know.
A meth house.
Meth house. There you go. Well, I'm glad we went down that avenue. I'm sure I'll hear about it.
But on this one, without your movie knowledge, these are cannabis grown.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that people tried to, climb up, hike up to this area to get some free weed, is essentially what they would try to do. And it was two people that were doing this very thing that found Kirsty's body. So they're going to have to probably explain that. It's a good thing that they were able to find her body, but probably tough to explain what they were doing there when they found it.
Exactly. And what's that stuff in your pocket? Because they're not going to throw the weed away. They were like...
Just try to explain it.
Yeah.
Police immediately imposed a lockdown on the area. They even made it a no-fly zone. And they conducted an extensive search of this area for many days after the discovery of Kirsty's body. And when I say extensive, I mean extensive. It talked to Gibbs about the fact that they turned over rocks. They looked in crevices.
They were just trying to find any type of clue. And they went and took plaster castings of any tire track that they could find. And they were just trying to find any evidence that they could to try to get some justice for this family.
All right, Gibby, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, BetterHelp. Listen, folks, if there's something out there interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals, BetterHelp Online Counseling can help. They offer licensed professional counselors specialized in a wide array of issues: depression, grief, self-esteem, so much more. You can connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. This means you can get help at your own time and at your own pace. Anything you share is confidential, and it's so convenient. You can schedule secure video, phone sessions. They even have chat and text options with your therapist as well. And if for some reason you're not happy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time, no additional charge. Best of all, this is a truly affordable option. Our listeners get 10% off their first month with the discount code TCAT. So why not get started today? Go to betterhelp.com/TCAT, fill out a simple questionnaire, and get matched with a counselor you will love. That's betterhelp.com/TCAT. So we mentioned that Kirsty's body was in an advanced state of decomposition. This was due to the fact that this time of the year in New Zealand, it's the peak of summer.
Yeah, that's always confusing to me, right? Because we know what it's here. It's freezing here.
It's like the middle of winter for us, and for them, it's the middle of summer. So her body was transported to Christchurch Hospital, and this is where they performed the autopsy. And I think a horrible time, Gibbs, for the family. My assumption is they had to know in their hearts that this was Kirsty, but they still had to make an official confirmation, and it took 3 days. So that's why I'm saying, like, to me as a family member, that's a rough 3 days. Assuming that this is probably your daughter, your sister, but we don't know for sure. And we won't know until we get the dental records to confirm.
Yeah, and I think that was some of the issues that at one point the family had with the police and the media, is because when they found the body, because the police wanted to make sure that they had solid confirmation, well, before the police could even get to that point, the media already circled back to the family and gave them the news that the body had been found. And I think that was kind of, the family was upset that the police didn't come to them right away, but the police said, wait a minute, we just didn't want to come to you without, even though we were pretty sure.
Yeah. What are they going to do? Say we found, and now that I think about it, I think I've heard them do this in other cases. We found a body. It could be your daughter, but we're not sure.
Yeah.
I guess they could have done that, but
there's also, what if the small chance it wasn't, is that giving false hope? And I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know if there's a good way or bad way around it.
It also means everybody that you find around the area, you're basically coming and saying, we found a body.
Yeah.
Every female. We don't know if it's your daughter, but it could be.
Could be. Yeah.
So tough all the way around. But after those 3 days, they were able to confirm using dental records that it was indeed the body of Kirsty Bentley. The autopsy confirmed that she died of blunt force trauma to the right side of the back of her head. And these were very, very forceful hits, right? So forceful that they fractured her skull. And it's believed that the hit was so hard, she died very quickly. The pathologist gave the opinion that she most likely died the night she went missing, and that she was driven to the spot where she was recovered. So killed somewhere else, driven to this spot, and then her body was dumped. And I think, really most of this determination was made due to stomach content. About, when was the last time she had eaten and all of that. And then just the overall state of the body, the decomposition of the body, all of that.
And we know from previous missing person cases that end up in them being murdered that it normally happens very quickly after the initial kidnapping.
Unfortunately, they have a show called The First 48. And there is a reason. It's often cited that most of the time when someone goes missing, they are murdered within the first 48 hours. And again, I think it's what makes it so tough for some of these families that, in some of these Gibbs, we're talking about families who don't know what happened to their loved ones for 10, 15, 20, and some 30 years. Now, in the back of your mind, something has to say, most likely they're not alive, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's very, very tough. Kirsty's funeral services were held at St. Stephen's Anglican Church in Ashburton on January 25th, 1999. Her body was cremated and her ashes placed in a steel urn that was sealed. Her family was there. It was said, there were 700 other individuals.
Yeah.
there to watch this ceremony, and her ashes were planted in a specialty garden at the family home.
Keep them close.
Yep. So they have found her, but police don't know what happened to Kirsty that day. They don't know who did this to her. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. So the investigation continued, right? The police reached out to the public for assistance. Really what they were looking for from the public was people that had seen vehicles in the area during that time frame when Kirsty was walking Abby and went missing. The police also made a plea to the cannabis growers to alert police of anything they had seen or, anything that they knew. Now, you might get something from people in the neighborhood. You might get a lot of things. You might get a description of cars that don't mean anything, but I just don't know how much information you're going to get from the cannabis growers. I just don't know. I don't know how many of those are coming forward and saying, here's what I know.
Exactly.
And by the way, I grow cannabis.
I'm one of those cannabis growers. Unfortunately,
there really isn't, any new good information that comes out of, the plea from the authorities. Nothing that helps them move it forward, nothing that assists in the investigation. The one thing that they had going for them, essentially every news outlet in New Zealand was covering this case.
It's a pretty high profile case for New Zealand.
It's one of their biggest. I think we either said that up front or said it on something. It's one of the highest profile missing person, unsolved murder cases in the history of New Zealand.
Yeah, and I think because it was so high profile that, the two hikers that were looking for cannabis, right? The whole reason they went to police after they found the body was the fact that they saw the mom on the news the night before pleading for someone to help find her girl. They knew they were out there doing something they shouldn't have been, but they knew this was more important. Instead of like trying to go back and put a random note somewhere, hey, go up this hill 20 feet or whatever, you might find what you're looking for. No, they made sure they went directly to the police and got this case going.
As the investigation continued, a $50,000 reward was offered, and the police had hundreds of persons of interest, and they had some suspects pretty early on, and then, some more over the years, hundreds of persons of interest right away.
Yeah.
The problem is over time, the majority of these individuals were eliminated, right? As persons of interest, and even a lot of the suspects were eliminated. Eventually, the list of hundreds got down to about 20. And I think, Gibbs, as happens with pretty much any unsolved case, this big list that you start out with, right? The authorities start out with might be hundreds. Eventually, you're eliminating persons of interest and suspects. You get down to just a handful.
Yeah.
And so, but we do have a handful of individuals that we're going to talk about. I think first we'll take a look at some of the more obvious and usual suspects. Very early on, right out of the gate, police focused on Kirsty's family. They looked at her dad. They looked at her brother, John.
Which makes sense.
I mean, yeah, they have to. Yeah. Of course, right? Both her father and her brother denied any type of involvement. What I did find strange is, back during that kind of original time frame, police actually came out in the media and said that both were suspects. I could see that they might say they're talking to them.
Right.
Maybe even using the persons of interest, but to call them a suspect, that seems rough.
Yeah, I think, you're applying a lot when you say that.
Mm-hmm. The family home was searched for evidence. Police sprayed luminol. They were looking for traces of blood in the home. They didn't find anything. Now, I think one of the issues is that Kirsty's dad, he really didn't have much of an alibi. He stated that he had been in Christchurch, but later said that he had been in Ashburton for part of the day. So this change of story was somewhat odd, probably to police. It was also odd that he allegedly said he forgot because he had hit his head on a cupboard that day.
Which is a strange thing to say.
It is. I think there are some people that believe he has not told the entire truth about the day in question. But at the same time, I think most people, Gibbs, believe that his confusion about the day's events don't correlate or relate to the fact that he murdered his daughter.
Right.
Probably more to the fact that he was maybe somewhere where he shouldn't have been.
Yeah, I think it leads more towards that.
I think a lot of people believe that's the case, right? You're a family man. Maybe you were doing something that a family man shouldn't have been doing, and you're trying to help the police without exposing your deep, dark secret.
Yeah.
Is what I believe a lot of people think. Not that he had anything to do with the murder of his daughter.
Right.
Investigators had some help from a retired British inspector named Chuck Burton. And this was a guy who had a lot of experience in cases like this. Chuck was a profiler, similar to what we're used to over here in the States, an FBI profiler. What Chuck Burton has said is that the person or persons who carried this out had to be close to Kirsty. He believes that they knew her well. And he's basing this on how the crime was committed and how her body was left. Police never charged Sydney or John, as they really had no strong evidence to bring a case against them. And eventually they would both be removed as suspects completely. In 2015, Sydney died of esophageal cancer, and his death made the news. And kind of for a short period of time in 2015, renewed public interest in Kirsty's case. And it was shortly after his death that a woman came forward and told police she suspected that her previous boyfriend had some involvement in Kirsty's murder. And this guy was a person of interest to police in the beginning of the case. He was interviewed back then along with this woman. The guy was cleared back then, but according to his ex-girlfriend, he bragged about killing Kirsty Bentley for years after that.
So he'd get on a little drinking binge.
Yeah, he'd do, get a little drinky drink in him.
Yeah.
And talk about how he murdered Kirsty. And I think this woman over the years, right, has said, gotta look at this guy. He keeps saying that he's, he killed her. But the police, according to them, have never been able to corroborate her story or her facts.
I think that'd be hard. If you can't, besides he said, she said, if you can't get any type of evidence wrapped around it, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, somebody gets drunk and they brag about something. It's not enough, right?
No.
You gotta have something to tie them to it. Now, the next suspect isn't really a who, it's more of a what. Right? The police are looking for information on a green van with the registration Ep9888. The police want to find out who owns this van because they want to ask them some questions. This was a 1961 van set up like a camper, and it had this really faded greenish blue color.
Yeah, like your Ford Fiesta that you just bought the other day.
I bought an old Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, I know you felt bad about that. So
speaking of that, you haven't heard it yet, but we have a voicemail that I'm going to play a little bit later about the whole Ford Fiesta.
Good stuff, huh?
Fiasco. Yeah, it's funny.
All right.
And I think this van is fascinating for a couple of different reasons. Number one, there's only a few of these type of vans that exist in all of New Zealand. They believe that the van was used to tour in. to play music or whatever somebody was doing. They were going on tour. But the last time it was registered was in 1995.
So the last time it was registered was 3 to 4 years before the murder.
Which you could look at as very important. Why would you register a van that you know someone is looking for? You probably wouldn't.
Mm-mm.
You just scrap it.
Yeah.
Get rid of it. I mean, it's probably not a van that's worth a lot of money. It's a 1961 faded green van.
Probably related to the Ford Fiesta.
Probably.
Yeah.
But to date, authorities have not been able to find this van or track down who owned the van back during that time frame. The police did have a witness come forward. This was a mechanic who claimed he had seen the van prior to Kirsty's disappearance. He said he reported it to police that night because, as he put it, the van looked very suspicious.
So it had to look really suspicious to report it. I mean, what if you saw a funky vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how suspicious would it have to look for you to call the police?
Well, for me, very.
Yeah.
For my daughters, any van that even drives slowly in front of the house, they're about ready to call 911.
I've been put in the cruiser twice since I've been coming out here just because I look suspicious walking up to your door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks, Emmy.
And I'm not kidding either. And it really is my oldest daughter who she has a thing about vans.
Yeah.
She has a thing about cars in general that she believes are driving too slow and casing the house.
They're just going around the corner.
I'm sure she doesn't get any of that from me.
Poor Amazon delivery guy. He's coming here to bring you one of your many deliveries.
Yeah, I do get a lot of Amazon. Now, this van was also seen by other witnesses in the Ashburton area in the weeks before Kirsty's disappearance. And there were reports that it was seen in the Camp Gully area where Kirsty was found. So again, this van is like, I don't know how much significance it has, but it seems to be in a lot of places of importance in this case.
Yeah, pretty central focal point.
Yeah, I think, knowing the uniqueness of the color of the van, police have always thought that there's someone out there who has knowledge about where it is now, who owned it back then. There's all kinds of different things. They want to get to whoever owned it, whoever was driving it in 1998. That's what they want.
Yeah, and you would think that somebody would know.
Sure.
A camper van with that color. I mean, I think somebody would be like, oh, that's old Mr. Such and such.
Knowing there's only a handful of them in the whole country of New Zealand.
You think somebody would know.
Right. Now, police do get a lot of calls, Gibbs, as you might expect, about vans matching the description. There's probably people that are living in a van down by the river somewhere in New Zealand.
Probably.
They're getting called on. Police are going to have to go check them out. And that's what they do. They check into all these vans, but I think the majority of them aren't even similar to what they're seeking, not even close. And, eventually over time, as with anything, sightings are less and less. The reports coming in are less and less. And there really haven't been many lately from what I understand. And earlier on in the investigation, the police distributed a flyer with a picture of a girl that had been seen with this van on the day Kirsty went missing. Some locals said they knew her. They came forward, but they didn't know her name. They didn't know where she lived. And in all the years since Kirsty was killed, no one has come forward to identify this girl. Again, the van, the girl, so strange, right? That people, they have a picture of this girl.
Yeah.
And nobody can seem to identify her.
Nobody knows.
Very strange.
I find it very bizarre.
Well, and the other thing that I think is strange, right? Nobody can identify this van. Nobody can identify the girl. On top of that, nobody can really pinpoint this girl's connection to the van.
No.
So it's like 6 degrees separation, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever you want to call it. Seems like something here is important. but they just can't get to it.
Mysterious girl, mysterious van.
In March of 2017, the police were investigating a man named Russell John Tully, who in 2014 murdered 2 employees of a staffing office in Ashburton. Tully was known to be camping around the area that Kirsty went missing from at the time that she went missing. But they interviewed Tully, and he denied knowing anything about Kirsty, denied knowing anything about her case. After a year of investigation and follow-ups, the police confirmed the reason he was not first looked at was because he was living in the town of Nelson and had a good alibi.
Good alibi goes a long way.
It does. As a result of all this information, they removed Tully from the list of suspects. But this was not a great guy. Obviously, he murdered people. And I think at one point they were very high on him.
Well, clearly, it took him over a year to clear him off of it. So that was some pretty in-depth investigation.
So Gibbs, we know that last year was a huge year, right? For solving cold cases, unsolved cases, using some of these advances in DNA.
Yeah, a lot of great outcomes.
And I think detectives working Kirsty's case are hoping that they're going to get a break like there have been in some of these other high-profile unsolved cases. And we don't know exactly what evidence they have, especially in the way of DNA, but chances are they have something, right? Either through the dog leash, Kirsty's underwear, or the boxers.
Right.
There were some other items as well. All of this has been sent off for detailed analysis. Detectives were hopeful and said that we know there's a strong likelihood they could get some type of hit and lead that could spark interest and even solve this case. But just early this year, the results came back on some of this DNA analysis and it didn't produce any new leads.
No, and I think it was kind of a disappointment to the lead detective. But he also said, you know what? Doesn't mean it's over.
Sure.
Right? Potentially down the road, this DNA could come in useful again, So I think as DNA science evolves, right? it keeps evolving.
Sure.
There's probably a potential that they might get something off of this.
Well, and the other thing is, it's not just it's not just the advances in DNA. It's, does the perpetrator get tripped up doing something else and somehow get their DNA into a database?
So now they're inserted into a database, which trips some things.
Because that's the thing. You can test all the evidence and DNA you want.
Yeah.
But if you have an offender that is not known to anybody, is not on anybody's radar, is not being tracked in any database,
doesn't do any good.
You're not going to get a hit.
Mm-mm.
You're still not going to know who that DNA belongs to. So I think that's the other piece of the puzzle. Are some of these people over time tripping themselves up and getting into a database?
Yeah, I think they do.
They have a lot of evidence in this case, like 70 boxes, 400 folders of documents and evidence. And
that's a lot of information.
Yeah.
If anybody knows of anything, if anybody's seen her walking the dog or seen the dog or anything, please ring the police.
Her mother, Jill Peachy, has since remarried and moved away from Ashburton.
Well, in some ways it's like it's yesterday, and in other ways it's a completely new life.
A new life.
She smiles upon us.
But one filled with reminders of the daughter she lost so violently.
She had a vibrancy that just lives forever. I think of her, and that warmth of her smile comes through.
But the person who inflicted the massive blow that killed her and the location remain a mystery.
We can't be 100% satisfied as to where that blow was inflicted on her head.
The lead her dog was wearing when it was found tied to a tree, and Kirsty's underwear are now being retested in the hope that advances in DNA testing could finally reveal her killer.
So I think that was a good place to play the clip because, number one, we wanted everyone to hear from Kirsty's mom, Jill. She had some amazing things to say about her daughter.
Sure.
Which is what you would expect. But then there's also, detectives talking about the retesting, which we talked about. This clip was probably a couple of years ago, or at least a year ago.
Right.
Before those 2019 results came back. But, Kirsty's mom, Jill, has said that on the day her precious daughter died, a light switched off. This is heartbreaking. She talks about the fact that her heart grew quiet and still. It's been, over 2 decades later. And over time, over that long amount of time, Kirsty's mom has learned how to process that pain that she lives with every day.
Oh, yeah.
And she has learned how to live again.
You got to learn how to function, right?
Yeah. And the way that she put it, and I found this fascinating, and she said for her own sanity, she basically created an attic in her mind where she stores things. And sometimes they come out, right, of the attic. She deals with them and then she puts them away again. And that's how basically what she's describing is compartmentalizing.
Yeah. Dealing with memories, dealing with the good ones and the bad ones.
And I think you have to learn how to do that. So we mentioned that Kirsty's dad, Sidney, died. At that point, Gibbs, Jill, and Sidney had separated. After he died, Jill had Kirsty's urn dug up from the family garden, and she brought it home and put it on her mantle. And it says, Kirsty Mary Ann Bentley, 18th January 1983 to 31st December 1998. And what Jill has said is that on her way to bed every night, she walks past Kirsty's urn, sitting on the mantle, and she says, "Night, night, darling."
Every night.
Every night. And again, I just think some of these cases, they are heartbreaking.
Yeah.
For a number of different reasons. You've lost your daughter, right? And you lost your daughter in a bad way. But on top of that, you don't know why. You don't know who. That would eat at me every single day.
Oh, absolutely. Forever.
And, there's something to Jill and what she talks about in, processing the grief, processing the pain, finding a way to live your life. Because I think it would be very easy to get sucked into the pain and the misery of losing a child and never figure out how to live your own life again. You're just the parent of a murdered child. You're not this person.
Yeah.
And you don't move forward. I think that's very possible. And I'm sure it happens to a lot of people.
And I like how Jill said she took, but it took her a while, but she eventually learned how to function again.
Took her 20 years. I don't know how many of those 20 years, but it took her a long time.
Yeah.
But again, so I will say this. I think they have some DNA. There's a couple of different things that can happen. I think, number one, somebody could slip up and get their DNA entered when they didn't want it entered. Or maybe you could get one of these familial DNA matches through, a JED match or something like that. That's always possible. And then narrow it down to who the real offender was.
Right.
Who never had their DNA on file anywhere.
Always hope.
There is always hope. I'm definitely not saying as much as I used to that I don't think this will be solved.
Yeah. Because
we are seeing some solved that in the old days I would have said, no way. They're never going to get it. And they're getting them. That's the thing.
They've gotten many.
But that's it. That's the case of Kirsty Bentley, We've got some voicemails, Gibbs.
Let's hear some.
All right.
Hey, Fergie. Hey, Gibby. I was listening to the most recent episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved because it gets me through my third shift job. And I heard some crap talk about Fiestas and had to go settle it because I recently just got a 2015 Ford Fiesta, and I can say it is a party. They are the best, cheapest little cars that can fly around corners. Accelerating for the interstate? Maybe not. Chick magnet? Maybe not. But other than that, 2 out of 5, that's something for the price. Anywho, I've been listening for a while now. I love your guys' show. Originally, I found you guys, had never listened to any other podcast or anything, and I've been hooked ever since. I've listened through all that I can, and I'm about to have to upgrade to the Patreon status in order to hear the old Unsolved, and then maybe hop over to Criminology, which isn't as fun because it doesn't have my boy Gibby, Team Gibby, of course. But anywho, have a good one and keep your own time ticking.
So I heard that and I laughed, right? Because I knew, I think we even said it, that we're going to get some shit from some Ford Fiesta owners.
Yeah.
Here's what I didn't realize. I'll let you in on a little secret.
All right.
I didn't know they still made Ford Fiestas. I literally thought this was like something they stopped making in the 80s or 90s. And so I had to go out and look it up. So first generation Fiesta, 76 to 83. Second generation, 83 to 89. Third generation, 89 to 97. Fourth generation, 95 to 2002. And then it just keeps going. They're on their sixth generation, 2009 to 2019.
Well, he just did a perfect ad for him.
He did.
2 out of 5.
He did. So I will say this, and it's not me backtracking at all. I'm still not sure the Ford Fiesta is a party. He says it is. 2 out of 5 is not bad. Is that what Meatloaf said?
I think so.
I think it's 3 out of 5. Right?
Yeah. Can't even
But-
get that.
So what I was picturing when I was talking about it in the episode was like an 80s Chevette or an 80s Dodge Omni. That's
Yeah.
what I was picturing Ford Fiesta.
The fishbowl?
I literally did not know, and you'd be shocked at what they look like now. Had no idea that they were making these into the 2010s.
Hey, I wouldn't be shocked because when I left my parking lot at work today, I was swarmed by 2 of them. And I thought,
That's right.
I wonder if they're in on this, man.
I forgot. You told me the story right before.
I wasn't too worried because I knew
That you could handle yourself, but
yeah, my car zipped by them real fast.
So we just happened to talk about Ford Fiestas, and Gibby is surrounded by them on the way out of his parking lot at work.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theory right there, brother.
I'm just saying.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name is Tristan. I'm calling from Salt Lake City, Utah. First-time caller. I've been wanting to call in for a while, but really wasn't sure what I wanted to say. But I just finished listening to a podcast, or one of the podcasts that just had me slapping my forehead. Gibby, fry sauce is from Utah, not Idaho. We get the credit for the fry sauce. And it is usually just a little ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together. Sometimes you can throw in some barbecue sauce, and it is amazing. But I love the podcast. I appreciate everything you guys do. And I'm definitely telling all of my friends to listen. Have a good day. Bye.
Well, the old Idahoan, what are they? What are you from
just
Idaho?
said Idahoan?
I don't know. If you're from Idaho. So
Just say if you're from Idaho.
Hey, the person from Idaho that told me about the fry sauce said, but guess what? Utah people are going to tell you they invented it.
Yeah, is that what he said?
So there you go.
Now, I will say this. The fry sauce that I've had and that I like is much more than ketchup and mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah. I like
Whatever it
Freddy's,
is.
Man.
Well, I know you keep saying Freddy's. Freddy's is like a chain that probably most people listening have never eaten at and have never heard of.
That's probably true.
But they do have a fry sauce, and other places have a fry sauce.
Yeah.
It's much more than ketchup and.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't we have some at Whataburger too?
We did.
When we were in the airport?
We did, man. Yeah.
It was pretty good.
That was real good.
Theirs is, I forget what theirs was. Spicy? I can't remember.
We got the spicy one.
But, yeah, I love it when people call you out.
But
now, you would think that it would be Idaho, just solely based on the potatoes.
I know.
But Utah probably said, all right, you got the potatoes,
We'll have the sauce.
We're going to take the sauce.
We're bumped together.
Exactly.
One thing that I did love from Utah was that Utah salt that somebody sent us.
Oh, that was good.
That was the best salt I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, my son is like, hey,
get more of
that salt, man.
My wife is into this Himalaya salt. It's pink or something.
Pink stuff, yeah. Yep.
But that was the one that somebody sent us from Utah was very good.
Yeah, it was very good.
Hi, this is Bobby calling from Texas. First, I would just love to say that your guys' show is awesome. I've been binging both Unsolved and True Crime all the time. But one thing I wanted to mention or see if you knew anything about was a murder in Illinois, little town of Bloomington in central Illinois. That's actually technically where I'm from. But a family was murdered, mother and children. They're the Hendricks family. Father was ultimately convicted but then acquitted. It's even a case that Dr. Michael Baden testified in. Nothing's ever come of it since his acquittal. No one ever talks about it anymore. So I just thought it was an interesting case, and you guys do such a great job talking about all the things that are there and the evidence and the stories and, you know, what to support. And anyway, so thanks, guys, for all you do. Keep your own time ticking.
You had me at Dr. Michael Baden.
Had me at Illinois.
I actually didn't know there was a Bloomington, Illinois.
Really?
I knew there was a Bloomington, Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize there was a Bloomington, Illinois as well.
A few Bloomingtons out there.
I'm sure there is.
How's it going, fellas? My name's Cole Iden. I'm from Owensville, Missouri. I started listening to True Crime podcasts with my girlfriend. We'd listen to them in the car on drives. And I guess we don't take enough drives because I started looking for different True Crime podcasts to listen to and stumbled upon you guys. And one thing led to another. Now I'm completely caught up on all the TCAT and TCAT Unsolved. And I think you guys do an awesome job. I like you more than the initial podcast we used to listen to. So it's got to be saying something for sure. As far as the team, I'm going to go with Team TCAT because you guys are like, you know, the gruesome twosome. Make a good team, I do believe. Well, I guess that's it. You guys keep your own time ticking and take it easy.
So I love this voicemail. I'm going to tell you why. Gruesome twosome. The only place I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
And he could have heard it somewhere else, but the place where I heard that is in my favorite show, Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
There you go.
So he could be an Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan.
Is that where the he came from?
No. The gruesome twosome, though. That's where that came from.
I thought at the beginning there when he said that he used to listen with his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Then he found a new. He's getting ready. I thought he was getting ready to say he had to find a new girlfriend, but he said he had to find a new podcast.
He had to find a new podcast.
Yeah. So wasn't sure where it was headed,
but we appreciate it. Very, very much. All right, Gibbs, that is it. That's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Hey, TCATers, don't forget about BetterHelp. Whatever struggles you're facing, from depression, trauma, anxiety, to grief, BetterHelp can connect you with a professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. They have secure video and phone sessions, as well as chat and text options with your therapist. And anything you share is completely confidential. And best of all, this is a truly affordable option. Our listeners get 10% off their first month with the discount code TCAT. So why not get started today? Simply go to betterhelp.com/TCAT, fill out a questionnaire, get matched with a counselor you'll love today.